Hiker Jay here. This week I'm going to show you how to find, collect, process, and use fatwood. What is fatwood? Fatwood is the nectar of the wilderness fire god. It's an incredibly great fire starter that you can use in the wilderness, whether it be just regularly out backpacking or in a survival situation. So I brought you this pine forest today to collect fatwood. Fatwood is something that's a natural fire starter, and people have used it for many years. And what it is it's basically the resin from a pine tree. It's incredibly flammable and very nicely waterproof. And some people might grab a dead branch like this and say, wow, look, it's kind of got that orange pigment and stuff, but it doesn't have much resin in it. What you want to do is you want to collect the resin that's been sitting at the bottom of a dead branch that's collected all of this inside of it. So we're going to go cut down a couple branches that have been dead for a while, but have been collecting all that resin and then harvesting that first couple inches that's connected to the tree, that nectar of the wilderness fire gods. So when you come up to a pine like this, what you're looking for is a branch that's died off up a little ways. As you can see, this one is dead, and that has a nice angle to it. What happens is when this dies, the tree knows it. So what it does is it sends resin to right to this point to seal it off and to pack it in so that it protects itself from disease and bacteria that might come in and harm the tree. So you'll find the best concentration right up against the tree and probably about an inch or two into the branch. So let's cut it off and see what we find. So what I'm doing is I'm cutting as close and as flush as I can to the actual tree to get as much of the fatwood I can. So let's see if this is all right. So let's see what kind of resin. It has a good smell to it. As you can see, the resin has collected, and what I want to do is shave it back a little more and see what kind of color I have right at that base. So when I test it, when I want to check it out to see how much resin it has in it, I shave off the top part right here just to check it, because the branch sits like this, and what happens is the resin comes and sets at the bottom where it connects to the tree. So it's going to be a little bit more concentrated along the bottom here. So I shave off the top, because if it's at the top part, it's going to be down at the bottom even more concentrated. And this is a pretty nice piece, I can already tell. So I want to get some more. I'm going to harvest some more today while I'm out here. So let's go get some more, and then we'll actually shave some of this off and start a fire. So this is kind of a really nice example of how that resin actually just kind of soaks down the pine tree and then sits in this dead branch that has been sitting here for a while. It's all kind of just slowly made its way to where it connects with the tree. And you can tell, because it has a really strong, like, it smells like pine, yes, but it's more like a chemically, like turpentine type of smell. That's when you know you have a good selection of resin, a good collection of resin. So now that I've processed 3 really nice looking pieces that have potential for great fatwood, we're going to actually take them back to camp and process them to see how actually good they are. Because once you start cutting into them and then actually starting to start like fires with the little shavings, you'll know how much resin is actually in there and how good of a sample you have. So let's head to camp and check it out. So first off, what I want to do is just clear all that bark off and see what I have underneath it. I can tell that there's a really good amount of resin in here, which is fatwood. So what I'm going to do is clear off the bark for about, I don't know, 5-6 inches. and then I'll saw it off, and then I'll have a nice piece of fat wood that I can make shavings out of to make fire. What I want to do is process all these, keep a couple of them here out at camp, and then a couple in my kit. So let's see what this one looks like. So one thing you want to be careful about is like right here, it looks really great up in this area, but really all that it is just soaked with water from being wet from here down. So that's really not resin. What you want to do is you want to get down to the dry stuff that's closer to the tree. I'd have to say that this piece is definitely more concentrated than this piece. This might be a piece that I just leave out here to use whenever we're just having regular fire to start a fire. But still worth it. All right, now between all three, I would have to say that the smaller one is more concentrated and really a great piece of fat wood. This is probably the one that I'll keep in my go bag, just so for emergencies and such, because I know it's a good piece. This one is probably my next best piece. I'll probably chop this into little fire starter pieces, as well as this one. This one's not bad right towards the end, but it's so wet from being rotted and the water getting in through the rot that it's just not as nice a piece. But this one right here, this one would make excellent fire starter in a survival situation. So now I'm going to cut them off, and then I'm not going to split this guy. This guy is going to be made for use for shavings, but this one right, these two I'll actually split into nice little fire starter pieces. Yeah, so you can even see how it's kind of dead at the end, so it even broke off into this kind of chalky powder stuff. So definitely not one of the best pieces of fat wood. But that's kind of how fat wood hunting goes. Some pieces are good and some pieces are bad. Now that I've got them cut and split open, let's talk a little bit about what we have here. This piece would probably be the weakest piece. You can see how it's already been rotted down, and it just has some fat wood on the bottom where it would have set to the tree and soaked in. Now, this will be fine for kindling, that type of thing, so I'm going to still chop it up. The second one, which is this one right here, you can see the resin's kind of thick at the bottom, and I was worried that it was just wet, but it's okay, it's resin. But again, good for fire starter, not so much for raining, you know, when it's raining out, starting a fire for survival. Now this piece I love. It's gonna be hard on camera, but you can see just how orange and that great copper look that it has here. Now that's gonna be excellent for making little shavings out of and starting a fire with. So as you can see, it's just got a really good amount of resin in it. This is a great sample of fat wood, and will work great for just making those little shavings. So then you can take a fire starter and just strike at it and start it up. We're gonna do that next. Let's check it out. All right, well, we'll start a little fire on this rock. So what you wanna do is you wanna take your really nice piece and just make a ton of little feather shavings on it. Actually do it on the wood so I don't mess up my blade. Just keep carving off a bunch of little feather stick pieces like that, nice and thin, but full of resin and pine. Okay, now when you have something like that, what you want to do next is do some really fine shavings, so like they almost look like powder. I'm gonna do them right here and then move them over. I'm gonna do them onto this actual piece of wood here and then move them over, but just keep making those powder shavings. All this sawdust style shavings, now that's what's really gonna light from the ferro rod. Now that I've got this kind of nicely rounded for shavings, I'll probably save that side for making shavings and then take chunks off the other side. So take your sawdust, put it right in the middle there. Grab my ferro rod, get over top of it, throw some sparks in there. There we go. we have a fire started with Fatwood. As you can see, Fatwood is a great fire starter in the wilderness when you didn't bring one along. So hopefully you found something interesting or learned something today in this video. If you did, please hit like and subscribe and hit that little bell button so that you get a reminder when I drop my next video. Till next time, just remember, life's a hike, so hike happy.